Good morning. I'm Jason Stanton. I serve as senior pastor at First Lutheran in Onalaska. It is Wednesday, January 27th, and this is my morning musing. I'm kind of focusing my musings during this 21-day racial equity challenge on the challenge for that day. And so for today, we're on day 10 of the 21-day challenge. I'm just going to read some of the little paragraph that the invitation suggests. And by the way, if you haven't started the 21-day challenge, you could start on your own or jump in to day 10 if you'd like, or just do this one because today's, if you like documentaries at all, like I do, I remember when I first started doing morning musings last spring, I was in the midst of a documentary on Vietnam that Ken Burns had done. Just an incredible documentary. I love all of Ken Burns' stuff, the Civil War, the Roosevelts, jazz, baseball. He's done so many. And that one on Vietnam, I still think about it from time to time, thinking about how Vietnam and many of the seeds that were sown into our public discourse, I think a lot of the pain that was sown then is still bearing fruit in 2021. And I'm sure will beyond now. And knowing and understanding our history, I'm a history guy. So I believe that knowing our story makes sense of our now and can help us live into a future that's maybe different from the history we've been damned to repeat until we understand that history and then can move beyond some of those cycles of hurting each other and ourselves. And this documentary that's suggested for today definitely falls in the same category. The title of Ava DuVernay's extraordinary and galvanizing documentary, 13th, refers to the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. If you don't know what the 13th Amendment is, you should. We all should. The 13th Amendment, part of it reads, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States." The progression from that second qualifying cause to the horrors of mass criminalization and the sprawling American prison industry is laid out by this documentary. There's lots of archival footage and testimony from a dazzling array of activists, politicians, historians, and formerly incarcerated women and men. This story creates a work of grand historical synthesis. It's on Netflix. If you get Netflix, it's worth an hour and 40 minutes of your life. I'm just going to share a little bit about what it starts with because it's startling. It was to me, and I try to keep up with some of the stuff, and this is news to me. The United States has 330, 350, I can't remember exactly how many people in it, but 5% of the world's population. And we have 25% of the world's imprisoned population. We sing about ourselves as the land of the free, and we incarcerate more people in every way that you cut it, by percentage, total number, more people than China, than North Korea, than any other nation that we point at and say, you should increase your freedoms. That's incredible. In 1972, our nation had 300,000 people imprisoned. Today we have 2.3 million. That's a 700, I'm not a math expert, right? 700, it's 2 million more people in just 40 years, 50 years. That just stunned me to know not only how many people, 2.3 million seems like a lot, but when compared to any other nation, it's vastly more than how other nations treat their own people. And so then you got to wonder why, where does this kind of stuff come from? And so then it gets into the history. And the quote from one historian who's on the documentary, he says, "History is not just stuff that happens." And I think this perspective on history is not how everybody feels about history. History isn't just stuff that happens, he says. It doesn't just happen by accident. We are the products of the history that our ancestors chose if we're white. If we're black, we're products of the history that our ancestors most likely did not choose. And yet here we are all together, the products of those sets of choices, and we have to understand those choices in order to escape from those choices. Of course, that assumes all of us want to escape from those choices. I'm hoping that most people hearing my voice would be among those who would like to escape from the kinds of choices that our ancestors made pertaining to enslaving and imprisoning humans. The 13th Amendment grants freedom to all enslaved people, and then it has this exception that I read in that introductory paragraph, except as a punishment of crime. And that is the in that many in the 1860s and 70s and beyond started exploiting. Can a clause like that, except as a punishment of crime, can that be misused? Well, yeah, if you criminalize a whole race. And so after the Civil War, you get hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of people being arrested, criminalized for loitering or for vagrancy. Basically, you can make up what loitering means. You can make up what being a vagrant looks like, and imprison someone for it, and say, well, this is accepted in the 13th Amendment. And then, of course, once they are imprisoned, they have to provide labor as prisoners, which is how the Southern economy fires back up. I mean, they'd lost 4 million people in their labor force. So how do you get labor back in? Well, you arrest everybody and basically put them back in the fields. Can a clause like that in the 13th Amendment be misused? Yes, we've seen it since it was basically implemented. And aren't we seeing that now as mass incarceration continues to proliferate, not just nationally too? This is something important to the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin is among the worst offenders at mass incarceration of people of color. And so I find this documentary to not only be informative, but I think important for all of us to understand where this criminalization of an entire race of people comes from. It didn't just happen by accident. It's the product of choices our ancestors made. And the more we understand that story, the more we can escape from it. That's the good news, is that we aren't damned to just keep this system going like it always has. Our generation can make a change. When I say our generation, I mean anybody alive can change how this all works from now on. That's the good news. And so we keep learning to keep faith alive.